the era and the chapter of this book closed. Bang. New chapter. Let's review. Maybe let's not review the whole chapter. Let's review the kind of final few pages. He's a polarizing character. Undoubtedly a great manager. Undoubtedly a great manager. A manager that has turned the fortunes around at that football club beyond kind of all recognition. There we go. If you look at that football club, kind of 30. If you look at that football club, kind of 20. How far back am I going? 10 years ago, 2014. Kind of okay. Was that year under Rodgers where they were doing something? But apart from that, it's been just average. As my OBS breaks a little bit, but we should be back. It was that period where they were down in the dumps, in the doldrums, and they were not good. And then all of a sudden, this young, exuberant, funny, charismatic German manager from Borussia Dortmund comes through, and something starts to happen. And then the quirks start to come through. The celebrating a 2-2 draw against West Brom, the 5-4 win away at Norwich, Adam Lallana scoring in the 150th minute or whatever it was. These things happen, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, momentum happening, and then they make top 4, and then the next year they go on this run in the Champions League, and this run just keeps going, and it doesn't stop, and they make the final, and a couple of moments of madness cost them that final, but they go again the next year. They lose the league by a point, but they make the Champions League final again, and they win it. And then the next year, they win the league. And it was just kind of like this cycle, this momentum of something that just was not going to stop. And obviously a couple of trophies later, Champions League final later, a couple of Carabao Cups, an FA Cup later. He has a pretty good resume under his belt. A resume that probably could have been and maybe should have been improved upon. I think if you look at some of those finals that they played, probably should have won in Paris. Probably almost definitely should have won in Paris. Any other day, Thibaut Courtois doesn't perform like a prime Manuel Neuer, Levi Yashin, and every good goal, Petr Cech and Oliver Kahn, and just the best goalkeeper to ever play the game. On any given day, that Liverpool do add that trophy to their basket. Probably could have had a couple more Premier Leagues as well. If Man City are 5% worse than what they are, they probably have 2 more Premier Leagues. But that's how the cookie crumbles, and now it's ending in a unceremonious falling off the cliff sort of ending, and the phrase that springs to my mind straight away is die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I'm not going to sit here and say that Jurgen Klopp has become a villain all of a sudden, because I can guarantee you right now that Jurgen Klopp, once the dust settles on this season and in a couple of months' time when Liverpool fans look back at Jurgen Klopp, they will think about the good times only. Because look, a couple of 2 bad weeks in his last couple of months as Liverpool manager doesn't hold a candle to some of the success and some of the good memories that he's brought to them. However, there is this undeniable factor about Jurgen Klopp that his managerial tenure at Liverpool had the ability to end on such a high, whether or not it was a quadruple or not, or whether or not it was just another trophy, or at least giving every trophy a fair shake. That is something that will leave Liverpool fans with a sour taste in their mouth, because they should have beat United in that FA Cup tie. They're probably a pound for pound a better side than Atalanta, and they're a better side than Everton, and a better side than West Ham, and a better side than Crystal Palace, and they dropped points in all 3 of those games. Two losses and a draw in the final 2 months of the season when you're battling in the title race that's fought by mere points. It's not good enough. Doesn't win you trophies. Doesn't win you titles. And we've seen now what turned into what could have been a very, very celebratious kind of ending to his tenure has become a nightmare. It's a shame. It is a shame because look, I think a lot of rival Liverpool fans, a lot of fans of rival clubs will revel in this. I had it coined to me today. ABL, anyone but Liverpool, was kind of the mantra thrown around by a couple of Manchester United supporters that I work with, and I thought that was quite funny because I wonder how much of that hatred for Liverpool has been fueled by Jurgen Klopp's polarizing nature. Obviously, Liverpool and United hate each other, no shit. But Jurgen Klopp, if you don't like Liverpool, you don't like Jurgen Klopp. And if you hate Liverpool, you probably hate Jurgen Klopp a lot more than what you would if he was a manager of a different club that you don't hate, because he backs his team in. He is sometimes, most of the time, unreasonable. He wants to live in a world in which his team is favoured, and he says it almost publicly, right? And it's quite how do I say this? It's quite transparent in his ability to just be so blindingly kind of biased to his own team, but you have to respect it, in my opinion. You have to respect it, because you, as a manager, that's exactly what you want. You want, as a player of a manager, you want him to back you in, and as a fan, you want him to back your boys in as well. So I think a lot of rival fans are going to revel in this ending that he's had, this unceremonious. I don't want to sit here and call it a capitulation, because I think that is very unfair. I think that is very harsh. What I am going to sit here and say is that it probably could have gotten. How do I say it? It probably could have gone a little bit better. Put it that way. And hey, look, that's football, right? That's football. Shit happens. It's cruel. It's so cruel. It is so cruel. Just ask Coventry fans how cruel football is, and how it does not care. And for every success story, there is millions of hard luck tales that put a dagger in the heart of a lot of fans. And while Liverpool are a club that pride themselves, now look, yeah, my brother's a Liverpool supporter, right? So maybe, and quite funnily enough, when I tell that to people, a lot of people say, "Oh, you must hate Liverpool then." No, it's actually the opposite. I actually have a somewhat, I wouldn't say soft spot, but I don't hate Liverpool. I really don't. And as a Chelsea supporter, that probably rubs people up the wrong way. As a person who has a sibling who's a Liverpool supporter, that probably rubs people up the wrong way, because people are like, why do you like them? Surely you hate the team that your brother supports. And look, when they lose, I do have a little bit of a laugh, but when they win, I see my brother happy, and that's the main thing, right? So, but I also do like what Liverpool stand for as a club. Maybe this has political views and political ties, which is quite ironic, because Chelsea and Liverpool probably couldn't be further opposite from the political spectrum if you really want to go down that road. But look, maybe it's a more social thing. And I like what they stand for. I like the working class backs against the war nature, and they lean into it heavily, and it rubs people up the wrong way, because some people think it's self-indulgent and kind of woe is me and all this stuff. It can get to that point. It can get to that at points, depending on who you ask and depending on who you speak to. But I think on a whole, Liverpool supporters do go about things the right way, and are a very passionate and admirable supporter base. I'm not going to sit here and talk about the atmosphere at Anfield. I've never been, and I'm not currently planning on going, so I'm not going to sit here and comment on that. But look, if it was meant for any club to have a happy ending, it was probably meant to be Liverpool, considering the amount of pain that they've suffered over the last kind of 30 years, 20 years even. Whereas pain I'm speaking comparatively speaking, because obviously Liverpool don't know the next thing from pain when it comes to football events over the last 20 years in comparison to other clubs, but comparatively, you know what I mean. So yeah, it was probably meant to have a happy ending for Liverpool, but unfortunately it's not meant to be. And look, Klopp's legacy will be questioned. Klopp's legacy will be questioned because of this kind of final month and a bit of the season where he could have and potentially should have given the quadruple a fair shake, and he was beaten in the FA Cup by a United team that had no right to win. He got beaten in the Europa League against a side who, Atalanta are pretty good, but Liverpool are probably better. And he's dropped points in 3 games in the Premier League against sides who Liverpool are better than, and have done them in pretty embarrassing fashion as well. You have to question it and go, okay, while every good manager doesn't deserve a happy ending, good managers probably put themselves in a position to have happy endings. So does this question his legacy, his ability as a manager, and the phrase that I went back to once again, die a hero, live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Because Klopp won't have to face these consequences, but the Liverpool Football Club do. What happens to Van Dijk? What happens to Salah? What happens to some of these older players? Is the squad going to be rejuvenated? Is the squad going to be refreshed? Will Klopp's legacy on this club be a similar fading legacy to one of Sir Alex Ferguson, where he left them in a position where they couldn't succeed anymore because of the squad was in tatters? Or is there something to build on? Who knows? Who knows? I guess, yeah, I don't know. And I guess, look, losing the league at Goodison Park, it's not Holly. It's movie, right? And I've said this countless times. Live sports rights Hollywood movies better than Hollywood write Hollywood movies. And regardless of how that result panned out that day, unless it was a 0-0 draw, but that probably was never going to happen. Regardless of how that result panned out that day at Goodison Park, there was always going to be a story. There was always going to be a headline. There was always going to be that thing that had massive ramifications in regards to the relegation race, title race, and legacy. And ironically enough, it was a result that no one really saw coming. It was a result that hadn't happened in about 30 odd years. Maybe that's a long time period. But Everton haven't won a Goodison at home in a derby in a long time. And it was a result that no one really. How do I describe this? It was a result that was the most unbelievable because you expect football to be nicer than that. But we always get reminded that football's cruel. And people kind of have this schadenfreude where they love the cruelness of it and they laugh in Liverpool fans' faces because of the pain and the torture. Maybe it's that. But they lost the league at Goodison Park. They win that game, they probably go on to beat West Ham. And we sit here and we're looking at a completely different proposition. But they haven't. So what happens to Liverpool from here? Who coaches them? Can they maintain the success? Can they maintain the game plan? Who knows?